say you're not involved. Don't try to convince yourself that these problems don't affect you at all. Because now it's Lebanon, Azania, Grenada. How many more? Tell me now, how many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and watch your children go off to war. Don't stand back and wait for this violence to come to your door. Because now it's Chile, Guatemala, El Salvador. How many more? Tell me now. How
Peace and love, my brother. Welcome, my brother Shanti Austin. Welcome again. I appreciate your time. And this is very important discussion that we have. All our discussions are very important. But, we're dealing with the transition of Assata Shakur. She was one of our freedom fighters. She put it all on the line for our people. So it's important that when we mourn, we have a way that represents who she was. And I think that when we mourn, we talk about who she was, and we talk about how we need to carry on her legacy. So, brother, I want to get right to business. The first question I had for you is describe your early memories of Assata.
Okay, right on. Well, first, Comrade Frank, thank you for having me on again. I really appreciate what you do, and to keep spreading this word, not only about our political prisoners, but about the need to keep struggling. So, first question, just real quick, and just in terms of me, if people don't know, I'm Ashanti Alston. I was a former member of the Black Panther Party out of New Jersey. And at some point brought into the ranks of the Black Liberation Army. I was a prisoner of war for a total of 14 years. I'm here in Rhode Island now, and we're still struggling, and we're still fighting not only for the political prisoners, but we got to get our liberation. Number one. My earliest memory of Assata is and one, just to be really clear, we never even met. We never met. It was just that at the time that I was working a lot out of the Harlem office, and the police, FBI was hunting for our comrades from the Black Liberation Army, you would hear her name. And of course, at that time, you might hear Joanne Chesmard. But then after a certain point in New Jersey, me and another comrade was in the New Brunswick jail. But before we was in the jail, there was an incident on the turnpike, the New Jersey Turnpike. And when we heard what happened, and it involved our comrades, Zaid Malik Shakur being killed, the cop getting killed, and them shooting Assata, we heard that Sundiata was still free. And some of the comrades hopped in the car, and like they was figuring, well, just whatever chance there might be, they might be able to see him, find him, and get him to safety. But of course, that it didn't happen that way. But that's how we were moving then. And I'm telling you, even then, we was all young Panthers. But we knew that if our comrades, our soldiers was, in need of help, we was in a position to help, you do it. So when we was in the New Brunswick jail, this is where Sundiata was locked up, and this is where Assata was locked up, because they wouldn't put her in the women's facility. So we didn't get a chance to see Assata, But while we was in the jail, they had a whole tier with Sundiata on a whole tier by himself, and they wouldn't put no one else on that tier with him. And that's how locked down and under surveillance they had him. But when we was able to come out to visits, we were able to let him know who we were, local comrades from Plainfield, New Jersey, and we're here to support you. We didn't know how long we was going to be in that jail. They wasn't serious charges, but to let him know. So that was like as close as I got to even Assata. And the funny thing is you look at how the newspapers built her up. And the newspapers, these reactionary newspapers, the way that they categorize her as the mother hen of the BLA, the engine or the fire of the BLA, they was actually helping to create a legend in our midst, because when our people read that, they knew what the media was trying to do in terms of putting her in a negative framework. But even people in the Black communities saw someone who was heroic, and you really got to see it when the Assata's liberation. But that's a whole nother story.
I appreciate you taking our mind back to that time and just being so detailed with what was happening. And thank you for all the things that you went through, continuing to keeping up with the fight. And I think that's what it's about, right? It's an understanding that this is a lifestyle for life, and Assata taught us that. And we have to pace ourselves, and that's why these discussions are important, right? We checking up on each other, we having dialogue, you sharing experiences with me, and you get me to reflect on what's my role in this work, because we all have a role in it. My next question is, what is the model of Assata Shakur's impact on the people's right to self-determination?
One, to reaffirm over and over that we have a right to self-determination, and especially on that, she was very clear on Malcolm's words in terms of the need to fight by any means necessary, to not be limited in our understanding of the fight back or in our fears of what we might be willing to do. Assata was, being from the ranks of the Black Panther Party, joining the Black Liberation Army. You're in an armed group. You're in an underground. And so it's already clear in your mind that you are going to develop that armed capacity of our people's movements to be free, because that was definitely the objective of the Black Liberation Army, that we was to respond to the needs of our liberation struggle. And especially at the time, you're talking about back then in the early 70s and stuff, the police is doing their regular, they're just shooting our people down in the street. But when the Black Liberation Army responded, the incidents of police shooting our people down and killing them went down, because of the force of that guerrilla warfare that would not allow them to get away with it just carte blanche. So Assata understood that. She understood the dangerousness of the situation and everything. And another thing I want to say about that part, the dangerousness, she as a person, and all of us as a person, you have to be firm in your beliefs. You have to know that you must prepare for all levels of struggle, whether you have to go to the underground or not. And I think the other thing was, when you actually have to go into action, you are with your comrades of this unit, and you support each other and you feed each other, and the dangerousness is not going to hold you back. It allows you to have the courage to do the things that you need to do as an underground apparatus of your liberation struggle.
Wow, yes, you just made me think about, the training that is required, the political education that is required. I remember seeing a picture of Assata Shakur raising her hand. It appeared to be at a political education session. And so that allowed me to understand the importance of political education. You spoke about, you know, comrades looking for Sundiata Acoli. So it's that love that the comrades have amongst each other that you was experiencing, and I'm experiencing as well. And just to know that there is a direct connection with that, and there's a strong and powerful history with that, I think that that needs to be discussed often, right? Because we need to understand the bond that is necessary to deal with our oppressor, because our oppressor is
Right.
vicious. Our
Right.
oppressor has a long history of having no mercy on us, and we have to have love, and we have to have that tight bond that is necessary to endure this struggle, because it's a struggle to
Yes.
get liberated, and
Yeah.
we have to pace ourselves to do this for the duration of our lives.
Right.
One of the things that I respect and about you and respect about Assata is that, you know, you talked about young comrades. You know, I know in the Black Panther Party, you know, you had a lot of comrades that were teenagers, so they
Right.
understood the time. They used to say, "Cease the time," right? So they weren't waiting around for anything. They wanted to respond in the moment, and I think that that's what we need to really reflect on now when we talk about Assata. We need to reflect on the time that we have, and we need to do what is necessary, and not just continue to have a very extremely long analysis of the concrete conditions. We have to make an assessment of the concrete conditions and say, oh, this is what we're going to do. Let's get it done. And then we
Right.
go back to evaluating what we've done and see if it was correct or incorrect. Um,
Yes.
my next question is, what validation does Assata Shakur's life give to the fight for freeing political prisoners?
Oh, that's a, when I looked at your question, I looked at the word just validation by itself. And I went to like the internet and stuff. So this is that AI overview, but I thought some of it was like would help me to explain my answer to that question. It says that validation is the act of confirming, verifying, or recognizing something as correct, true, or legitimate. Now, that just that definition there, and there was other definitions as well, but that one struck me because, especially related to political prisoners, our work, and especially the work that you do with the Northeast Political Prisoners Coalition and Jericho and Holla and others, is that we have to explain to our communities all the time, not only what our political prisoners are incarcerated for, but who they are, what's their beliefs, so that people can really understand why we did what we did and why we do what we do, because we are in a struggle for our liberation against this European empire that has established itself on the back of Turtle Island. And so, like, in that, we have to constantly keep reminding our people, don't settle in. And I think that Assata understood that so well, because in all her communications, they're very simple. They're not complex, but they go right to your head and right to your heart. We cannot give in to this monster. We must continue to fight. So our work in terms of bringing the cause of our political prisoners and prisoners of war is constantly to remind our people, not only do we have to fight for their freedom, but we have to keep reminding ourselves of why we got to continue, because that's what they fought for. That's what we fought for. And I'm gonna just say, like, one thing, like, there were several comrades who, like me and others, held their hand to their last breath,
Uh,
you know, and their last words was always, "Don't give up, don't give up, keep on fighting," you know, always that was the last word. So it's like with Assata and others still, and there's others who are in exile. You got Pete and Charlotte O'Neill. You got a Puerto Rican independentistas who are still in Cuba in exile. Even to not forget them as a part of our work in bringing them home, or at least creating the conditions for that liberation struggle to bring them home. We're in this from one generation to the next. We are in this. And if Assata stood for anything, she gave her all and asked for nothing, just to continue this struggle.
Oh, that's beautiful, brother. Speaking about Asada and the way you did, you made me reflect on, my preparation prior to coming on the show, and that so I was going through some of her autobiography on Wikipedia. I had the book and I lent it to a relative, and I never got it back. And then I bought the book for another relative who took a trip to Cuba, and I wanted her to know the story about Assata Shakur. But as I read some paragraphs on her life from her autobiography, it made
Right.
me realize that she had a deep evaluation of the concrete conditions, and that allowed her to take on a position because she was involved with several organizations before she was involved with the Black Panther, the Black Liberation Army, and that let me know that she never gave up on the concept of being a part of a collective, getting with an organization to really do some serious change. She wasn't comfortable with the conditions of her people. And I think that that's very important because we need to ask ourselves some questions. What is our relationship to our oppression? Are we comfortable or are we not comfortable? And if we're not comfortable with our oppression, what are we doing about it? What our position is, and that's exactly my position when it comes to political prisoners. If I'm not comfortable with political prisoners, what am I doing? Am I writing? Am I organizing? Am I being creative when it comes to ideas to bring to people? Because I tell people, if you wear a shirt that says something about a political prisoner, you are helping the work. You're putting the idea out there, and you're having people come to you and ask you about political prisoners. And from there, you can start to see where they're at. And then you revisit that conversation a number of times, and you try to encourage them to do more. And from there, you start to build up something that's strong, something that allows the political prisoner to have the opportunity to come home. How important is it that when we take on the work of political prisoners, that we get others to get involved?
Yeah. Well, that's a big question. It's an important one because even after all these decades, if I be honest, it's like it's been hard to get other organizations to put political prisoners on the top of their list. They either don't, or if you push and you got to struggle, they may put them somewhere, but not on the top. It may be somewhere on the bottom, But that's a constant challenge for us. It may mean that we need to keep rethinking how we are messaging political prisoners and prisoners of war, because the power of this system is great. The cultural power of this system is great. And I think at some point we're going to have to refigure how we need to message political prisoners of war. Even on that point to this day, um, did it should be a no-brainer that if you're calling yourself a revolutionary organization, liberation organization, political prisoners should be on the top of that list. And if they're not, then you should really think about that. And we should begin to, I think, more assertively challenge groups that are talking liberation and have no work that they're doing, for political prisoners. Safi Bukhari was one who was always very strong on, like, you got to pick up this work. You got to pick it up, or what real justification do you have? What real validation do you have to even be in this struggle, that you don't honor the ancestors, the captured ones, and the children who are yet to be born? Why are you doing this? So there's a challenge in there, and I wish I had the answers, but that's why I feel like even what you're doing, being able to have the discussions, it puts it out there, and we got to figure out the answers as we go.
Absolutely. I realized from my examination of being involved in the community and advocating for political prisoners, I realized that you have to be creative. right? You might go to a community and participate in something that you're not getting paid for, but you tell the people, I'm doing this in the spirit of political prisoners. Then now they ask you, what is a political prisoner? And now you start to discuss, and then you give them maybe a brochure or a palm card or a leaflet, whatever you have. And now they start to understand, oh, okay, that's what it is. Then you return, right? And when you return, and you
Yes.
might have something else. You might have a uniform
Yes.
on, but that's what I usually do. I usually have a uniform on that advocates the freedom of a political prisoner. So now they associate me with that idea, and they see that, oh wow, he's inspired to do something consistent, and he's bringing that idea to our community. And I think that that's something that we should look at. I know that I was with my brother of mine by the name of Sugar Ray. He did some incredible work in Queensbridge, the projects, the biggest projects in the United States. And when we were out there, I had a banner about don't let political prisoners die in prison. And people would stop and look at it. And then I had a banner of on behalf of the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition of Sundiata Acoli. He had a letter to the community, and it was an open letter, and it stood there for over a year. And also I had one of Rhonda Bowers. And
Right.
my point is that to bring that idea to a community, right? So that's something, if they at the bus stop, they seeing it all the time. So
Right.
that's something that they're going to think about before they start their job, or after they come from work, or before they go to school. And it might be something that they will bring to their classroom as a discussion, especially around like Black History Month, or even now, right? Today is October 1st, which is the beginning of Black Panther History Month. And those are times where, we could inspire that to be a discussion. So I always tell people, if you're a part of a school, call my number. I would love to speak to the students about political prisoners, or if you have a teacher, put that in your curriculum. And if you're part of the PTA and they have some money, tell them, oh, we need to have a session or a course on political prisoners. What encouraging words would you give to somebody who's a teacher or have any talent in terms of how they could utilize that talent towards advocating and raising awareness about political prisoners?
That's a great question, and even just talking at the National Jericho Retreat in Atlanta not too long ago, we were talking about that area of the schools, whether it's the elementary, middle, high, colleges, universities. If we have opportunities to get in there, and we should be kind of aggressive in trying to get invited in there, that then we should use them opportunities to talk to them audiences. And it's just really keeping in mind, if you're going into an elementary or middle school, you know that your conversation has to be at a level that they can understand. Stand quite different if you was going into a community center, a college, community college, or a university. But the goal is to communicate. The goal is always to communicate. One of the things I loved about Malcolm X, a man who in prison read the dictionary from cover to cover, he was never one to like show off his knowledge of all these big words. His goal of reading was to be able to communicate better, to be able to communicate with people from wherever they came, whatever station in life they came from. And so we got to do that too. And so the schools and things, like, there are opportunities to do it, and we should take advantage of it. I just spoke to a class in Brown University here, because this brother who's an English teacher does a session that he calls Fugitive Letters. And he had me come and speak to the students. And me also, and Kazi Toure, who's out of Boston, who's also a former political prisoner. And the students were very receptive. And because they had did some homework, the teacher had them do homework, they was up on what we came there for, but then they could ask deeper questions. And then they would write us letters. And even right now, and I'm still in the process of finishing writing their letters, but in there, I'm also letting them know this is the Jericho movement. These are the other organizations that are doing work. And if you want to know about them, contact me and I give you more information. Just like you were just saying before, it's as simple as that. The communication, the face-to-face is always very valuable. When we get them opportunities to do it, take it.
Yes, absolutely. You making me think right now about the utilizing community centers, right? So October 18th in South Jamaica Houses Community Center, we're going to be having the Curb Fest. And the Curb Fest 2025. And what comes to mind is that, these community centers are all over. So what we're doing there can be done anywhere else, right? When you identify that community center, this community center is here for the community. Our political prisoners are advocates for our community self-determination. So,
Right.
it only makes sense to use that to talk about them, to talk about these are models for people who stood up for you, and we need to recognize them. So we're going to have arts and crafts. We're going to have education. We're going to have food. We're going to talk to the community about our political prisoners. And this is South Jamaica, Queens, where Assata Shakur was from, where Sekou Odinga was from, where Matula Shakur was from, where Herman Ferguson was from. And those, I'm pretty sure that most people in those community haven't heard of them, or if they did hear them, not often enough. And now we have to be responsible for bringing their name back to the community, reminding the community that, what you're going through currently is not nothing new, but there's examples that you can follow and emulate if you're serious about change, right? You have to take that up, because nobody nowhere but where you're at is going to be responsible for changing your conditions, and it has to start from somebody. So why not you? One of the things that I tell people, or I think that people should be aware of, is to just pay attention to what's happening around you in your community. Like coming here, I seen a big poster. It had the continent of Africa, and it said Maafa. And I took a picture of it, and I said, well, I'm going to reach out to them, because if you're going to talk about Maafa, you're going to have to talk about our martyrs and our political prisoners.
Right.
So now you start to utilize that platform to talk about our political prisoners, get these people who have credibility in the community to advocate for our political prisoners, to write to the political prisoners, and also to write to the parole board when the political prisoner is coming up from for parole. So in your experience, how important it is for people to utilize what's in their community for this particular work? I'm sorry if I went too far, man.
No, that is perfect. Because what I do, even like is what I'm doing now in Providence, is I think it comes from that guerrilla experience. To tell you the truth, it's like, if there's an operation, you got to do a surveil thing of the area. You got to know the area of where you're operating and stuff like that. And so when I'm talking to the younger folks I'm with, I'm like, you got community centers, schools, churches. You also got to know who are the people that's been in your community doing work for years, sometimes generations and stuff. You got to know, do you have programs that cater to folks coming out of prisons? So all this stuff is even what I'm doing now. It's a part of anything you do. Know your terrain, know your terrain, so that you know who you can reach out to. And sometimes it may take some serious thinking about reaching out to a certain group of people differently than you might to another. If it's the street organizations, you approach them a certain way that may be different from a church congregation or other religious community. You just think about them things, but then you go into your creative bag, man. We are jazz people, as Amiri Baraka said. Go into your creativity to figure out how to make that communication happen, so that we can come out of this knowing that we're still heading towards liberation, and that we still got to put our political prisoners on the top of that list. Because in any battle for liberation, war liberation, many folks will die on both sides. Many will be captured from our ranks, and we got to be ready to be there for them. And just like one thing I definitely don't want anybody to forget about Assata specifically, the fact that the Revolutionary Armed Task Force, led by the Black Liberation Army, whether underground folks following and others, liberated her. So it may happen through the courtroom, it may happen through the power of the people's armed forces. And that is something that has got to be recognized. We're not in a nice struggle. We're in a liberation struggle. We do not fall for the BS of our system, of this system rather, and how it will vilify us. We got to keep it alive in our community that we're a righteous struggle. We're a righteous struggle. And we got God and all the gods behind us. We got the ancestors with us. And people got to really feel that, so that we can really win.
Absolutely. You know, all good times come to an end. So we got to end this show, this episode, and I appreciate your time. I know the value of it. I know you're a very busy man. You're a lover of the people. So I don't want to take more time than I need to address this important issue. But the closing remarks, I would like to say that, and then I'll let you go, is that, you know, the way I think is representative of what Assata is that the way we should mourn her is through our deeds, right? We got to sharpen our theory, but we need to get in the fight, wherever it is, political prisoners, if it's a campaign about addressing the fair ain't fair, or stopping the violence in our community. Get in where you can, fight for your people's self-determination, because all people have a right to self-determination. So be like Assata and be about the love for the people. So, any closing words, my brother?
No, only the closing words I use is a quote from Assata that I want to use. And it says, we need a revolution of the mind. We need a revolution of the heart. We need a revolution of the spirit. The power of the people is stronger than any weapon. A people's revolution cannot be stopped. We need to be weapons of mass construction, weapons of mass love. It's not enough to just change the system. We got to change ourselves. That's what we're going to do in this fight to be free, because we are going to evolve into the people, the kind of people, a united people we need to be, to bring this monster down and to lift our dreams up and really be free.
All right, my brother. Thank you again. What's the call?
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.
Never see Indians live proud and free before the oppressor's slavery. Black people live proud and free. How many more? Tell me now. How many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and say you're not involved. Don't try to convince yourself that these problems don't affect you at all. Because now it's Lebanon, Azania, Grenada. How many more? Tell me now. How many more? Don't you stand on the sidelines and watch your children go off to war. Don't stand back and wait for this violence